Welcome everybody to UFO Man Live. Tonight, we have one panelist absent. That's Nicole Weber. Due to unforeseen circumstances, she will not be here this evening. But picking up the pace for Nicole will be Nos as my co-host this evening. So we're waiting on Odessa. So as soon as Odessa comes back up, and we seem to have lost our guest there for a second.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be back.
Odessa won't be able to make it. The last of work that carried over a lot longer than it should. Kind of wiped her out.
Oh, so she's not coming. Okay. All righty. So tonight it'll be me, Will, Nos, and our guest Drew when he comes back on the panel. We will be addressing several topics this evening, one of which is the influence of alien interaction with Native American tribes. We'll also be discussing the personal encounters of alien contact with Drew BANKEY. We will also be talking about a Bigfoot encounter he had in the area where he lives in Colorado. We'll also be talking about the human chakra and the energy that flows within the human body and how it can interact in a telekinetic state. So we will be doing a telekinesis segment in the second part of the show. So let me introduce my panel right now. I have my friend and my brother, Gigi, to my right there. And down below is my friend, Nos. And she is one of the group experts, in my opinion. So if you have a question and you want to ask someone, please type it all in capital letters. And we will try to get to everyone's question, but it's very difficult at times to get to anyone's question if the conversation flows a different direction. So we will try our best. Now I'm trying to find out what happened to Drew. But so far he hasn't come back. He is living off grid, so it's difficult for his Wi-Fi to maintain a strong connection. So perhaps that's what's going on. Um, so, Gigi,
Hey,
what would you like to talk about while Drew is gone?
what I like to talk me? You're going to me? That's
I'm
strong.
going
Starting
to
out
you.
strong.
Yeah.
Well, the
Let's
UFO Man
do
show,
this.
so must be
What?
UFO related,
Yeah, right. What do you think about the current state of affairs concerning the disclosure movement at the congressional level?
right? Congressional level.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion about the UFO movement on the congressional level.
Yes.
That is gonna. That's just my opinion. I don't know. I don't know much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But it seems like you know, it's probably not in the books anytime soon, in my opinion.
Right. It seems like Project Sign. Are you familiar with Project Sign?
Um, it's an old one, right?
Right.
Like, I mean,
Project Sign stated that
really old.
UFOs are real and that UFOs are a national security threat. And if there's any way that they could put it out of the view of the public, that they would. And that's why it changed from Project Sign to Project Grudge. And Project Grudge started discrediting everybody who had sightings. And it seems to me like the current situation at the congressional level, where they're not focusing much on it anymore, is because they slammed the lid down on the disclosure movement. It is pretty much null and void for a few years. I've been told by people in the know that most likely we won't hear anything of importance probably for 5 years tops. And then it might be full disclosure within 5 to 10 years from a congressional standpoint. The only problem we have right at the moment is, according to my co-host Nicole, the identification tags for UFOs in the government aren't referred to as UAPs. They're referred to as something else, like identified alien craft, IACs, or IECs, identified extraterrestrial craft. So what we're going to do from the UFO Man channel, we're going to submit a Freedom of Information form to the federal government requesting information on the correct terminology for UFOs, and see if we can get that information so that we can clarify it with people. Because if Congress is asking for information on UAPs, they're asking the wrong questions.
Yeah.
They should be asking about the IACs and the IECs, if those are truly the correct designations. That's my opinion. All right. Well, our guest is back.
Yay.
Welcome back, Drew.
Hey, Drew.
Hey,
We were just winging it for a couple minutes while you were gone.
yeah, I don't know what happened. Just froze up right when we went to go live. So technology,
told
you
him-
know.
I told him you live off the grid and that you have a touchy Wi-Fi system, so that's fine.
Yeah, I think this is more my laptop going out. I don't know, but I got it elevated now, so it won't be overheating. So I think we're all right.
Okay, well, we want to welcome you to the panel. Drew Banky is an author. He has 2 books out, and I'm going to tell you what those books are right now. He has I'm Perfect and So Are You. And he has Find Your Inner Guru. And they're both available on Amazon. I think they might be both available on Kindle. Are they?
I'm not sure. There's I know that you can get the Kindle version on Amazon, like there, so you can get the ebook version on Amazon. I don't know if it's Kindle or not, but there's and then there's a few bookstores that carry them here locally in southern Colorado and the San Luis Valley that carry them. So
Okay. He's
if
an
you're
author.
if you're ever through Alamosa, Colorado, stop by Narrow Gouge uh, bookstore, and they're in there. So
Cool. He is also an Iraqi war veteran, so thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service, for sure.
He is also a medicine man or a shaman. He is also a ufologist. So we have a lot of topics to talk about tonight. First off, Drew, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into all of this?
I started my journey. My journey started at birth. I was adopted at 5 days old. So the first 5 days of my life, I was actually Joshua Brandon Robinson. So I was actually a totally, part of my life I was a totally different person, and didn't find out that didn't find that out till I was 18, almost 18 years old, and anything about the adoption or any of that, and that was a big shock to me. So that was my childhood trauma, and I believe that we all have childhood trauma in some way, form, or fashion, even if we don't realize it sometimes right away. It's there in some way. Either you're too rich or too poor, or something happens to you. I think it's part of the process of growing up, really. And so that was a big part of my depression and trauma process. Didn't really know that till much later in my healing journey, that was really a deep trauma that was really affecting me. um 19, went to basic training in the army reserves. Come out of that, and went to the police academy. I was a cop for just over 3 years, and 9/11 happened while I was a cop in Georgia. And I met my first wife, mother of my first two kids there. And uh, yeah, 9/11 happened when I was a cop. Everything changed, and I was still in the reserves. And my unit stood up a few times, and um, I don't know. At that time, I really felt a deep pull to go to Iraq and serve in that way. I wanted to serve my country. That's why I originally, joined the military. To serve my country in that way. And if there was a war, I wanted to be there. That was my mindset at that time. And in 2005, I went active duty. And when I talked to the recruiter, I told him that I wanted to go to Iraq, and he's like, no problem. It was like, and within like 2 months of me going active duty, I was, standing in Iraq, in Baghdad, flying in on a plane in the middle of the night, all blacked out, and the pilots and everything were in night vision. And I'm like, it was a big shock to me at that time. To be there is very kind of surreal in a way. And um, did a mission there where I was transporting high paid government officials, celebrities coming in, any high ranking officials really that was coming into Baghdad. We would pick them up from the airport and transport them to wherever they were having meetings at, in the city of Baghdad. So got hit by IEDs a few times, really didn't see very much as far as action, but definitely lived in Baghdad and drove the streets of Baghdad for a while in 2005. Come back.
Well,
Um, Go ahead.
what was your MOS, your military occupational specialty?
I was a 13 Fox, so I was also a 13 Mike, which is an MLRS crew member, but I changed over to 13 Fox, and actually in between deployments, I changed MOSs. I and actually in 2006, in between the two deployments, I also went to Special Forces selection. So their first phase, and I tore the meniscus tendon is the meniscus tendons in both knees. I did finish, but I wasn't selected at the end, and I was invited back to come back in like 6 months. And you know, it took me all of 6 months really to heal back to where I was really running again. It took me almost 6 months to heal after selection. Yeah, and then another deployment come up, and I reclassed to 13 Fox, was a forward observer, and I got sent to a first brigade combat team, Colt team, which is a combat observation lasing team. So I had a secret security clearance, and my second deployment, I did combat operations with Navy SEALs and Special Forces, CIA, all types of other, and seen a lot more than I did the first deployment for sure. And my last 5 months of my second deployment, I was there 15 months, my second deployment in Ramadi, which is west of Fallujah, in between Fallujah and the Syrian border. Very In 2007, it was the most dangerous city on the dangerous area on the planet. The unit that we were taking over for had over 80 engagements a day with enemy forces inside the city of Ramadi, and that was going on when we took over for the unit in January 2007. But the last 5 months of that, I was training Iraqi special forces units. Me and a team of about 25 other Army sergeants and lieutenants, captains were tasked to go train the 1-1 Brigade of the Iraqi Army Special Forces. So we were training them to use night vision, clearing tactics, things like that, and actually going on them with missions. And so we were in combat pretty much up until the end, actually doing missions with the Iraqi Army, live missions with the Iraqi Army.
Wow. I say that's very impressive. And again, thanks
Yeah,
for your
it is.
service.
Absolutely.
You're the first veteran we've had on that's had multiple combat missions. So it's good to talk to someone who can share their memories of that. What have you experienced since you left the service? I heard you have PTSD.
Yeah, I have PTSD, and I think that's something that's always going to be there. It's just because it's very traumatic memories that are never going to go away. No matter what I've done, and I have learned to view them in a different way. They did lead me to ayahuasca in 2016. Eventually PTSD. And suicides, attempts, and mass depression really led me to ayahuasca in 2016, and that was my spiritual awakening. Happened then. Kind of tricked me into it because I was just at the end of my rope, like I was telling you yesterday when we did had our talk yesterday. That I didn't go to ayahuasca like to be a shaman or to write books or anything like that. Like I was nothing else was working, and I was at the end of my rope, and I heard a lot of things that ayahuasca was helping people. Heard about the spiritual aspect of it, but I was a skeptic going in. I wasn't I wasn't a lifelong spiritual seeker and all that going to ayahuasca. I was very much a skeptic, but I thought if I thought it could help, I was going to try it. And yeah, showing me the spirit world is what helped me. So, it's changed my life. And, my third ceremony, I asked why I was here. And a lot of what I'm doing now was shown to me then that this is why I'm here. And I said, no, you got and I was actually in ceremony, in a vision, speaking, having a full-on conversation with the spirit of ayahuasca. And I was like, you got the wrong one, because I've done things in Iraq. I've had extreme rage moments in Iraq, and seen a lot of things. I was like, you just got the wrong person. It's not me. And it showed me I kind of hopped through every major point in my life. It was a lily pad, and I was hopping in midair, and it's lily. I'm just gonna say lily pad so we can like visualize it, but this like lily pad thing like lit up, and I landed on it, and it was an experience. It was like me being adopted. It was me being, going to Iraq. It was me, each and every experience that really was a really pivot point in my life, or something really major happened. It all led to the next one, and the last lily pad is when I first drank ayahuasca, and that's everything. Every one of those things connected,
Right.
and it was just my path. And that hindsight 2020, as far as why you're here in this moment on Earth, eventually translated into foresight 2020. Now I can start, if I know everything's in alignment in my past, and I know everything that's happening in the moment is in alignment as well.
Very cool. People in the chat room are asking, what type of personal contacts have you had with alien life forms?
2018, me and my wife went hiking in Chaco Canyon, and this is after I started sundancing and everything. And so I know by that time I knew a few prayer songs. And after we got done hiking in the canyon, I offered a song to the spirits in the canyon, a Lakota prayer song, and went back to the Airbnb that we were staying at, had dinner. It was our anniversary. We were out for our anniversary, me and my wife. And we had a B&B that was close to Chaco Canyon in Cortez, Colorado, which is, if you've ever been to Chaco Canyon, it's out in the middle of nowhere. So the closest B&B's, like an hour and a half away. But so anyways, we went back to Cortez, Colorado, and to the B&B, and eventually went to sleep. And I woke up about 2:00 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, somewhere around there, to this just buzzing in my ears, and really bad tinnitus. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm going to step outside and have some tobacco. I don't smoke tobacco anymore, but at that time I smoked tobacco. I stepped outside, and I lit up a cigarette, and I stepped like 2 steps on this deck as I lit this cigarette. I took one puff, and just this vibration started coming over me, like that was in my ears. It started to transfer like to the center of my body, like the vibration of the tinnitus started to transfer to the center of my body, and it was just emitting from like the center of my body outward, and it just started it was stronger and stronger with each second, so it caused me to like cough and like spit up, and not like puke, but like spit, it's like I coughed up something, and I leaned forward to spit into the yard on the edge of this deck. And as I leaned forward, out of the corner of my eye, I seen 2 feet standing beside me, and they were just black. And I kind of startled. I stepped back a bit, and as I turned and looked, this being turned and looked at me at the same way, same speed and everything. And it was the best way I could describe it. It was a shadow. At that time, I thought it was a shadow, and we were in town. So I immediately turned around. I'm not used to being around like streetlights, so I turned around. I'm like, oh, there's a streetlight behind me. I turned around. There's no streetlights behind me. And as I turned back around to this being, it's all black, but its eyes started to open up, and I just seen stars and just galaxies and movements and shooting stars in its eyes. And it kind of like I would say it kind of like sucked my soul out of my body through its eyes. And I was just flying through this dimensional spaces, and I was getting like downloads of like, to, accept the family, and basically it was like saying, we're all family, and that's what we have to accept to like really expand. And that was like the biggest thing that I got out of it. And like, I don't know if I realized what was happening or something like that, but my conscious like got scared for a minute, and I like popped back into my body, and I'm like standing in front of it. And it kind of it took like a step back, and I ran inside. I ran inside and shut the door and woke up my wife, freaking out, 5 alarm, about to lose it. And, telling her about it. And she's like, well, you've been on this journey for a while now. Like, by this time we've already been doing medicine for like 2 years and had other experiences with ships and things like that. But, yeah, it all fascinated me, and this happened, and it was just amazing. And what the residuals that come through, I'm still integrating now, 6 years later. I'm still, every time I tell the story, I'm integrating it more and more, of what it could have meant or things like that. But there's a lot of information that was shared in that time. What exactly it was, I couldn't tell you, but I couldn't tell you all of it really. But I just know it turned me on and turned my vibration of my being up into a different vibration after that point, because I can never forget that, and I tell that story, and, some people might be feeling it. Some people might be believing it. I know I got a lot of skeptics out there, but, it doesn't really matter to me. For me, that moment changed my life, and I know what happened in that moment, and I can never forget it. And, what really happened was, what really shocked me was about a week or two after that, I had a dream, and I went through the same experience, but from the other perspective of the being. And I saw, myself coming out. I saw Drew's avatar come out, light the cigarette, walk up beside me and everything. And then I realized like I was having an experience from the other viewpoint, and it was very familiar. It was just, uh, when you're around family, you can just feel it, and I just knew that that was me, from the future, just from a long time in the future, coming back to see myself, to give me that vibration so I can expand faster than I did, during the time when that being went through this process. And
I got to say this to you. Richard Matanis in the chat room says, it was showing you who we all are.
exactly, yeah.
And then he said earlier, that was your higher self.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be, it could be labeled many different ways. I was, it was very, the oneness aspect, really with the dream, seeing the whole, interaction from the dream space was actually a lot more transformative for me than the actual experience itself. Having the dream space experience from the ET Shadow Man, or whatever you want to call it, being, I think it goes past aliens or anything like that. I think it's its own characterization that we're still trying to understand. And when we make that connection, because the alien terminology and things like that's all tainted with separateness. We're talking about a whole nother reality that's oneness, and
Right.
that's a consciousness field that's not only present on this earth, it's everywhere and everything.
Right. What do you think, Will?
So, does that have, um, was that lead any credence to there being kind of a double universe in here?
There's
Or
more.
anything?
There's infinite.
There's way
There's
more.
infinite possibilities. Yeah. And it's dictated because there's 8 trillion of us on this earth, and we're all gods walking in human form that don't understand we're actually gods. We're actually, because our consciousness, when it starts to turn on and starts to manifest things, we can start to manifest things that are not present, realities, and reawaken, what we're going to be talking about later on tonight about with the telekinesis thing is really reawakening energies and modalities and abilities that the human bodies had for, the human construct has always had.
Before we go to you, Nos, I have a question from Live Light in the chat room. Would you label that download experience as your ascension or a Kundalini experience or awakening? Drew?
I'm sorry, what was the question? I thought it was going to someone else.
Would you label that download experience as your ascension or a Kundalini awakening?
No, I think the Kundalini was awoken in the ayahuasca ceremony. But I think the ascension process is a lifelong process, like that we go through. It goes from, it's a whole recipe from the trauma of adoption, war, ceremony, experiences, synchronicities, things like that, and eventually, it's just a whole process. I think it's a lifelong process. But
Okay,
yeah,
Nos,
the ayahuasca was definitely the major awakening point.
what do you think, Nos?
Oh,
Can't hear you. You're muted.
You're muted.
You should
No
tell me
worries.
when I'm muted. Just kidding. All right. I'm actually reminded of a couple other things. Just a few days ago, I was listening to audio rendition of an interview that Nikola Tesla had back in 1899. And, it's one of the things he was openly talking about is experiencing the vibrations of everything around him, and it's the sun in particular, just, feeling the vibrations of that and the relationship with, all life on the planet emanates from the energy that comes from the sun. The plants grow from the sun, the animals eat the plants, the animals eat each other. No matter what, the entire food cycle of the world is from the energy of the sun.
For sure.
And just the way that he would see the things that other people don't see, because he was opened up to that next level of frequencies. And it was very much like what you were talking about as well. It's that experience. But I was also going to mention that, when you talk about your experience when you had the encounter with the other and what followed, that's actually a direct parallel of the experience of John the Elder, who wrote Revelation. Okay.
Wow.
It was that encounter with the celestial being who, was beginning to expose him to something. And, the way that they describe it in the biblical scripture is that he was taken up in the spirit. That's the best description they can give at the time for astral projection, right? Entering a fifth dimensional state, entering the other plane, which is where he saw the things that were to come. And that's what he wrote down that made up those events. So your experience is not without, predecessor in existing.
Yeah. And that comes up a lot. My book, my first book gets compared to The Law of One, and that's not a book that I've even read since. But I understand, like, this message, it's a very simple message that comes through, like, when it comes through to of oneness and how to connect and all that. And I think it's designed to come through in slightly different ways, so it reaches everybody, and that's what I ultimately shown was my mission, was to help bring these truths to into a language and a form that could be digested by the masses. And I was shown it was going to come to me in a way that I was never really ever going to understand, but I was just going to, speak it. And, most recently over the past couple of years, I was channeling for a while. I was doing live channeling sessions where I would channel different deities, Osiris, and different well-known deities. I just you can look it up, and I'm out there. But and then I started channeling Source, because one time I was channeling Osiris, and I was like, hey, it's kind of, Drew's always been present during the channeling and coherent, but there's something else, like basically using his vocal cords and his system to speak. But Drew was always present. And one time Osiris was speaking, and I was like, hey, you kind of sound like the other person, the other being that I was channeling. And that's when Source kind of come through, and I started channeling Source from then on, because even the separateness in the channeling dissolved. And I realized that there was no separateness present on any realm.
We do have a question from the chat room. The question is from Polly. She says, why do some people feel vibration more than others?
You're just open to it. There's a crazy story in Florida happened to me. I was doing this happened a few years ago. I was doing a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies for people down there, like leading them. And of course, during the ceremony, I drank ayahuasca as well. So basically I was drinking, every weekend I was drinking ayahuasca. Not a lot, not as much as the people in ceremony, but just enough. So basically I was microdosing solid for, 6 weeks or so. Every weekend, Friday, Saturday night, you could just imagine I was basically just microdosing each Friday and Saturday night for about 6 weeks straight. And we went over to see some of our friends for just to have dinner, and we're standing out back of their place on a canal in Southwest Florida, Fort Myers, Cape Coral area. And they had a bunch of dogs, and they had a new dog there, like a new pit bull dog, and they had a dog collar on, and they was hitting it like it was a noise, like a dog frequency noise, that they were hitting it to train them. And I was hearing it every time, because they were doing it a few times, and I kept hearing this thing, and it was almost taking me down to my knees. I'm looking around, no one else is like hearing it. And I was like, what are you doing with that button? Because I was like, I realized after about 5 minutes or so, everything, that noise was like coinciding with, I was watching their hand, they was hitting the button. He's like, oh, we're trying to train the dog from jumping on people. I was like, well, can you shut that off? Because I can hear it. And they're like, you can't hear that. And they hit the button again. I was like, you could hear it. So I think, when we take these medicines, and what I've always said about ayahuasca and mushrooms, or any of these medicines, that really raise your vibration, so you can see and feel and experience different frequencies that are happening around us. Dogs hear a different frequency, but that humans can't hear it. But does that mean it's not there? The answer is no, it is there. Or yes, it is there, whatever, however to word that question. But the point is, open yourself up to the thought of what other frequencies are not there on other realms, whatever the frequencies we can't, and all our senses, because when you come out of an ayahuasca ceremony, you can smell different things, you can hear different things, like all your senses are turned up to a different dials, turned up just a bit still, and you can experience different things that are not there. Like you can, and that's a prime example of the dog whistle thing.
I actually have a question for you. Your senses being turned up, does that include just your mind's eye, or does it include your actual vision as well?
I think it's both. Because there's, if people, I'm sure there's some people in the chat room or that's going to listen to this podcast, that's this episode, that's done psychedelics, and can tell you that there's a point sometimes in psychedelics, it doesn't matter if your eyes are open and closed. You're not seeing this space. you're past a vibration to even experience this space. 5-MeO Bufo, 5-MeO DMT does that. Ayahuasca can do that. Bufo 5-MeO, and that's another medicine we work with here at Sacred Journeys Within is Bufo 5-MeO DMT, and just for that fact, it induces a source moment, and a source moment can be it'll transform the rest of your life. Every breath you take after that will be different.
Okay, I do have a question in regards to the UFO phenomenon. I heard from Nicole, who is not here this evening, that you have had personal UFO encounters, and if so, can you tell us about them?
I pick a good one. Contact in the Desert, 2019. The third night, I was not speaking there. I was just, I was there to make contact. and I made contact with people there. I met Clifford Mahooty there, connected with him, and we were friends after that. And that was my contact in the desert. Come to find out, like, that was my contact in the desert, like meeting people there that I needed to meet along my path. But so it's a four night event, and the third night of it, after the conference, we went back to our Airbnb, which is it's about 20 minutes out of town, and it was just this real primitive cabin that we were renting. It was cheap, and it was along our vibe of where we wanted to be. You know, we wanted to be out of the city and away from it, have a chance to get away from everything, especially being around all those people. You know, there's a lot of people, a lot of energy, and a lot of conversations, you know. And but it was at night, and me and my wife were sitting on some reclining chairs out by this cabin that we were renting, and having a joint, and there was, you know, insects, and wind was blowing a little bit, and it was just like something clicked, and all the insects stopped, like, and all the wind stopped, and it was an eerie silence that just everything stopped, all noise stopped, and it's like everything was in slow motion. I turned towards my wife. I'm like, "Do you hear? What's happened to the insects?" And she's like, and as she was speaking, it was kind of almost in slow motion. She didn't know what it was, you know, and I felt something above us, like go over above us, and maybe a couple thousand feet off the ground, just this huge darkness come over us, and it just stayed over. There was this darkness above us for a while, and it was just silence. There was nothing, and we could see the Indian wells in California, where Contact in the Desert is, where the hotel where it was and everything was down the hill, and we could see the lights and everything from the town. And this darkness went over us, and I was like, man, that's a crazy ass. In my idea at that time, I was like, that's a crazy ass cloud. And just a few seconds later, we're looking over Indian wells, and we see lights that start to line up, and then we see how big the ship, like, then we see the ship, because lights were going across, and then they started like doing different patterns, but it showed how wide the ship was. It was miles and miles and miles across. And
Wow.
I mean, after the darkness went above us, so the insects started chirping back again and everything. It was like the sound turned back on. But when that ship or whatever it was, I'm not gonna say what it was, because I don't know, but I'm just gonna tell you what I witnessed. But after that thing went above us, that object, everything is like a switch turned back on, and then we seen it above there. And come to find out, Emery Smith and Greer was doing a C5 event that night, and they had over 100 reports from Contact in the Desert where a mothership come over top of where they were at, and drones come out of the bottom of the mothership. And this was witnessed by multiple people from Contactee and Desert in 2019.
Wow. Too bad I wasn't there. That would have been great. Did anybody capture it on film?
I've looked for it. I've looked for it, and I haven't seen anything. I haven't found anything or seen anything, but I do know, I do remember them talking about it the next day on the fourth day. And I do know there was a lot of witnesses to it. So yeah, if you know someone that knows someone that was at Contact in the Desert in 2019, start asking around and see. It was, yeah, so it was an event that was kind of, it was amazing to go there next day and them talking about it. Hear people talking.
Were the
about it.
lights that you saw lining up, were they multicolored or were they just white?
They were just white, and it started off. I thought it was a plane or something like that, but then the line was so solid, and then when it came back across, it started like being not dots. It was just like lines, dot, line, dot, showing that it was
Huge.
one thing. And yeah, seeing the lights, I was able to really see the outline of it, and it was just a flat craft, but it was miles across.
Well, I'm going to let you know that we interviewed Terry Lovelace on the channel recently. He's a good friend of mine, and when he saw a giant 2-story tall, very large triangular shaped craft come over him and a buddy of his in a field in Arkansas, the insects there quieted. There was no sound. It was like being underwater. Also, another person, the man who used to be my co-host, Tom Reed, he also experienced, along with his family members, no sound, no bugs, nothing. It shut off at the site of his sighting. So it's common. It almost seems like maybe it has something to do with the propulsion system of the craft when it goes over.
I definitely have a feeling that the craft uses some type of gravitational technology with the Earth's, with the planet, with every planet. I'm sure that every planet has some type of gravitational pull or object. Really, once it becomes a certain size object, it has to really have some type of gravitational pull. But yeah, I don't know. Anything else past that, that is just speculation. But
Right.
That's what I saw. And a lot of people ask me or tell me that I should do the MUFON thing and stuff. I've already done the MUFON thing. Like when I first started, all this stuff started happening. And the conversation went from my craft experiences to astral projection, and then it went from one investigator to like 4 investigators. And after a while, I don't know, I described a place I went to. I was meditating one day without any psychedelic medicine or anything. And I went outside my body and seen this beam of light coming into my head. And I followed that beam of light out into space, and I found a satellite. And from that satellite, I found another like stream, and I followed that stream, and I went into this like bunker, this secret bunker. But I described, and this is part of my MUFON report. I described the bunker. I described the people in it. I described what they were wearing. They were civilians. They were not military. But when I was in this room, I looked up at the screen, and a picture of myself was up on one of the screens, and they were monitoring people with different energy outputs and things they're talking about, but they're actually monitoring energy from certain individuals and keeping track of them and monitoring. So from from that moment, I realized that a lot of people are being monitored right now, and not in a way that we don't even really think about.
What do you think about that, Nos?
I think he's right, and the more specifically, he's right. It's when you look at where human technology is and how much it has advanced just in the last 50 years, right? Then understand that with technology we have nowadays, you can detect the electromagnetic waves that a person creates in their cognitive processes, brainwaves, right? And there's no reason to think that any advanced culture wouldn't have, taken that up to another level where the brainwaves every single individual emanates are detectable remotely, right? When you look at where radio technology was 100 years ago versus where it is now, the cell phones in your pocket and the rest of that, it's a million times more sensitive than it was 100 years ago, right? So you have to just follow the train of technology that would develop from there. Eventually, humans are going to be capable of monitoring the brainwaves of the population, and that's not too far off. So, experiencing something like this from people that have had a step up in the game, absolutely reasonable.
I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and this guy was interviewing the first remote viewer for that's known, and he teaches now at the Monroe Institute. If you don't know about the Monroe Institute, check it out. And doing some amazing work there. But this guy was talking about how one of his he had a blind astral projection or whatever, a remote viewing case that they brought to him, and they put down a manila envelope on the table, and they asked him what are the pictures on the envelope, what is he saying, and he basically said that he's seeing pictures from 1 million BC of structures on Mars, and then he astral projected to Mars 1 million BC back there to this point, and he went into a cavern where he found human-like beings, 10 foot tall, 10 foot tall, a lot taller than what we are now, laying in stasis, waiting for family to come back and resurrect them. We're talking about 1 million BC. This story that humans are living through has been going on since the beginning, and it's going to keep going on. It's never going to stop.
Yeah, they're not actually telling us the truth either.
No,
about our history.
No, not at all. There's a lot of speculation flying around right now that we're actually the aliens on this planet, like we're originally from Mars. Mars was a habitable planet at one time. What they're starting to find out now. And if you Google like structures on Mars, like NASA structures, like you can do the same thing with the government, with NASA. You can FOIA them. You can Freedom Information Act, and specifically ask for structure photos from Mars to see what you get back from NASA. I haven't done it, but I know some people that have, and you will be amazed at what you find, what they have to give you.
Wow. I've actually seen structured pictures on Mars too that look like the same kind of architecture that we would use here on Earth. So when you surmise that possibly we are the aliens originated from Mars, it is one theory. I know some of us might be. I do believe that others are not.
I think the story, we're starting to figure out that the story's a lot bigger than, and it goes back or goes a lot bigger than what we realize. And I think that expansion of understanding is going to keep expanding. I think we're just at the cusp of this, but ultimately I think what we're here, like all this is for, is for us to start stepping into our powers and stop, living in, socially accepted slavery and, the 40-hour work week and things like that, and white picket fence and all the other bullshit that's been implanted in us and really designed to harvest our manifestation energy, really. And that's what the powers to be has figured out a long time back, that they can, basically harvest our magical energy, our manifestation energy that comes through us, that we can manifest our dreams or whatever. But our dreams are shattered and put on the back burner until retirement or whatever, and a lot of us get stuck in the system, and it's no fault of our own. It's just part of the process, and but once you see it, you can't unsee it, for sure.
Right. Okay. We are going to go into our second segment, which is a participation event put on by Drew Bankey. It involves telekinesis. So we're going to talk about telekinesis first, and then we're going to do a participation event with everybody in the chat room and everybody that's watching online. Okay, Drew, you have the floor.
All right, sounds great. So really just a lead up, want to talk about Dr. Emoto's findings, the secret of water, the energy of water, whatever. This is a Japanese scientist, and if some of my facts are off, don't murder me, but you can Google him and look up Dr. Emoto and find this information I'm talking about right now. They did, and a lot of people know about this, but what they don't do is apply it to themselves. So Dr. Emoto found that water reacts to both positive and negative frequencies. And he did this by doing experiments where he would take water, 2 cups of water from the same source, just in a glass cup, and put it in a room, a soundproof room, 2 separate rooms. One room would be, say, a speech from Hitler, and he would have it on repeat for 30 days. On the next room, the other glass of water, he would have, say, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, and he would have that on repeat for 30 days. At the end of 30 days, they went in and got the water, and this experiment was repeated over and over again. It was put under microscopes and seen that the molecules were different and everything. But there was a visible difference. First off, there was a visible difference between the water in the 2 rooms. The water in the room where the speech from Hitler was visible mold, discoloration. The water in the other room for the Beethoven was visibly clear, like crystal clear. So they put it under microscopes and they tested it. They put it through all these water tests and everything. They come to find out that the water that they put in the room with the Beethoven actually was cleaner, and it had less impurities than the water that they started with. The other water that was in the room with the speech of Hitler, it was undrinkable. It was diseased, and all the way down to the cellular form. With the cell forms of the Hitler speech water was actually malformed. It was the other ones were symmetrical, geometric shapes, things like that. So they come to deduce that water reacts to frequency of vibration, both positive and negative. Well, that, knowing that and reading this book, I was going through this and an epiphany just hit. I'm like, well, we're water, like we're 80% water. And, and then being around some of my teachers with plant medicine, seeing them mess around with pendulums and things like that got me interested in pendulums. I always strayed away from them. I didn't really believe in them or anything until I put one into my hand. And that's what I want the viewers to do, or listeners to do at this moment. Get a pendulum or a dowsing rod, whatever you use. It doesn't have to be a crystal. It can be a beer cap on a string, on a baling string. It doesn't matter what the pendulum is. It's just holding a pendulum, and we're going to use a lighter. So the lighter is just for the fact of we can all agree on an object. We're not going to light anything. Don't get caught up in the flame aspect or anything, the questions first goes in people's mind, oh, what are we going to do with the flame? He's going to move the flame or something. No, we're not even going to light it. We're just going to have a pendulum and we're going to hold it over the lighter or dowsing rods. And as we hold the dowsing rod or pendulum, whatever you want to hold, and that part of it is just to show you the energy. So hold a pendulum over the lighter, and we're gonna talk about the plastic part of it. It's probably a Bic lighter. Mine's yellow, whatever color yours is. It's got a flint in it. It's got propane, things like that. Continue to hold the pendulum over the lighter, and now we're going to talk about another way that we can look at this lighter. My particular lighter, it lights sage, it lights Palo Santo. When I do prayers with tobacco, it lights tobacco. It might light a candle, a prayer candle. So in that sense, it's sacred. It's connected to. Just because it can emit a flame, it's connected to the central fire. There's only one fire that's in existence. All other fires are imaginary. So this is connected to the central fire because it can connect that. And then we can, as we're talking about like that, we can go back and think about what factory it come from. You know, how many boxes it went in, how many trucks it went in to get there. And then we can go back and think about other ways it could be sacred. It could save your life. You could be freezing to death and you could light a fire and it could save your life. So in that way, it's sacred. And while you're doing this and going back and forth, and I'm speaking and you're processing what I'm talking about, just pay attention to what the pendulum is actually doing. You know, if it's doing something, and this is why I do this as a participatory event. I want people to feel the energy change depending on how we're talking about it in the pendulum. And that's the idea of what should be happening at this point. You know, if you've worked with pendulums before and you have certain things set up, it may not work exactly like that. But the idea is we can affect an object just as simple as a lighter with just our words and our thoughts. And I wish Nicole was here because she would tell you that I had her do this when I brought it up, and I want to do this on this interview, and I had her do it, and I had her play around with it and not just speak these words while holding the pendulum, but think them and pay attention to what changes. You know, this is not me showing you what my words can do. This is me opening up each and every one of you to show you what is possible that you can do. So as you're just thinking, hold the pendulum over something and see what happens as your viewpoint of that object changes from one viewpoint to another. And the more sacred, the more gratitude that's involved in your thought or words. Watch what happens with the energy that's coming off that object. So that's my introduction to telekinesis. I had a teacher one time tell me, he's passed away, but his name was Gray Wolf, a Native American teacher. And he told me that keep playing around with this, and one day you can take away the string that connects the pendulum. You know, you won't need the pendulum. And that's where I'm at now. Like I've already got the message of the pendulum and what the pendulum can show you. Telekinesis, telepathy. Anyone that's ridden a horse before knows that telepathy is real. And, all these things are real and they're dormant inside of us, a lot of us. And I hope that this exercise awaken a little bit of that in everyone, and
telepathy when you ride a horse is pretty much how you're communicating with the horse when you're riding it.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're riding a horse, especially if you spent some time with the horse and you start to realize that the horse starts to turn before while when you start to think about turning. The horse starts to turn, things like that. And you realize that the horse is connected to you on a deeper level. That's why equine therapy is part of our healing process, or our healing program here at Sacred Journeys Within. We work with psychedelics and sacred ceremonies, non-medicine sacred ceremonies as well. But we also work with equine therapy, and that's exactly why we do it. Show them it's not just the horses help people process the hallucinations into visions out here. And so it gives the visions credibility, and they're able to not label them as hallucinations when they leave here. They're actual visions, and the visions can change your life. Hallucination is a pretty thing, but a thing that most people classify as a vision is life-changing and, life-shifting.
Right. Tammy Kennelly from the chat says, I asked the pendulum to swing back and forth. It did. Then I asked it to stop. It did. Did this 3 times. So cool.
Cool. I'm happy. I'm happy it's I'm happy it's opened people up. The pendulum is an amazing thing to show you the energies there. The meridian. We have our chakra system in our body. We have meridian points in our hands, our feet. This meridian point, this meridian line goes down my arm, my right arm, all the way down, crosses my body, crosses my my sacral chakra, my belly button, goes down my left leg. So the right hand and your left leg is connected. Think about, if you know anything about batteries or battery terminals or whatever, both positive and negative. So your right hand is positive, your left foot is positive. Your left hand is negative, your right foot is negative. And visualize a line going to both of those, and that's meridian points or meridian lines, main meridian lines. So there's energy. It's obviously scientifically proven that there's energy flowing through us, but that's kind of the main energy pathways that are in our body. Our chakra system that goes up and down, our spine and our head, and from hand to foot opposite.
Can we get to the point where we can move a pendulum without actually holding on to the pendulum?
Of course. Yeah, there's exercises you can do. So there's one exercise you can do once you play around with the pendulum a little bit. You're still tethered, physically connected, with the wire. The goal is to eventually, lose, like my teacher said, Grey Wolf said, lose the tether to the pendulum, and you can move it. And there's proof. There's people out there that do it, and there's this process where you can have like a glass jar that sets. You can have a needle setting on and put it into a a cork or something like that, and the needle sticking up, and on top of that needle, take a piece of aluminum foil and cut it to like, an inch long or something like that. Fold it in a crease down the middle, so where it's like a, sets up like a teepee or something, and put it and rest it on top of that needle, and then take the glass jar and put it over top of that whole thing, so there's no air that's going to be moving around or messing up anything. Right. And you can sit there and start to move that, and that's the next step after knowing that there's energy from the pendulum. That's the next step, and that's the next step in releasing the tether to the pendulum. And you can start moving that back around, and eventually you'll be able to move that at will.
Okay, because I can't hold on to a pendulum because I have tremors, so it would influence the pendulum. So that's why I was asking.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, you're open to the idea. I mean, definitely you could jump ahead to this exercise. It may take a little longer, but it's a process. So we're reawakening something that's been lying dormant for generations.
Right. Okay, William, what do you think about this?
Oh, it's way above my pay grade, bud. I'm just listening. You don't take any time away from. Just steamroll ahead. This is too interesting.
Okay, well, I'm
down on
going,
me.
I'm just going down on the panel. I saw that you were working the pendulum, Will, and I just wanted to know what your
Oh, I'm still figuring it out. I'm just listening.
I just
You know?
wanted to know if anything happened for you.
No, not really. But I don't know if I was doing it right.
But
And I
maybe
don't
we're
have the
just at the
proper
beginning level.
pendulum anyway. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely beginning a little before that.
there's also, going into that, we're doing it on air and everything. It definitely helps of, maybe burning some sage or whatever, whatever your process is to like, settle down or, come into a meditative state or
Create the
calmer
space.
state. And really try to process, really the goal is to process like what I'm saying, and not so much what I'm saying, but how I'm approaching it, speaking about it in two different aspects, and then watching and hopefully feeling energy coming off of it, depending on you're talking about it in a more of a 4 or 5D state or 3D state. There's definitely a variation. So there's our words are very important. Our words and thoughts are very, very important, more than we can ever really understand, because really every single thought and word, it's manifesting something somewhere. And that's how powerful we are. And we, that's why my theory, I think we're the heart chakra of the whole creation, not just our solar system, but I think we're the heart chakra of our whole creation, because I think everything starts and stops on this planet, because it's manifesting, as we go down and get closer to this disclosure movement, it's expanding because all of our thoughts are racing. I was thinking, I talked about, I did a sweat lodge over the weekend, this last weekend, and I was speaking about it in the sweat lodge about how amazing it is. Like, I got 4 kids. I got a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, I got a 2-year-old, and an almost 9-month-old. So
Wow.
the difference between those two sets, I had a boy and a girl with my first wife. They started off in the same reality I did. Aliens were fiction, and now they're in a reality where it's nonfiction. It's
Right.
it's actually admitted by the powers to be that we've known about them forever. And it just keeps on unraveling more and more and more. And my children, my 2 younger ones, they're starting off in a reality where that's their reality. Aliens are nonfiction. How crazy is that? Like, it's just crazy to think about how amazing times we're in right now. It just is.
That we actually know that there's life elsewhere and that we're not the center of the galaxy. That's pretty much the truth. Nos, I wanted to ask you to elaborate a little bit on the celestial presence here. Can't hear you. You're muted.
So the celestial presence that's currently here on Earth?
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And just a moment, I wanted to say that with relation to what Drew was talking about, like understanding that the lighter itself, it has a provenance, right? It has a history that it knows that it's connected to. And that's the foundation of psychometry, right? Being able to read that. But once you understand that energy being present, that history of energy being present on the item, that's what actually gives you the answer to what the physicists haven't figured out yet from the double slit experiment. When they got to the point where they hooked up the observation devices And when the photons are being observed, they behave differently, but then they didn't have the device hooked up, and the photons still behaved as though it was. Well, the people that hooked it up were in physical contact with the device, creating the expectations, as well as the people that manufactured it and the whole history down the line. That device is not free of human influence. So whether it's plugged in or not, the device was created and implemented with the expectation of it being able to witness the photons, and the universe responds accordingly.
Very interesting. Very cool.
So the celestial presence here on Earth, you got the bad guys, which are often called reptilian. Proper name for them is Fomorian. They just want to destroy everything here because we can't have nice things. So they're up at the top level of influencing people in the highest positions of power to do the wrong things. That's what they're about. On the other side of the equation, the
Sounds like my ex-wife.
entities that come from elsewhere that are responsible for monitoring and cultivating life on burgeoning worlds are always here. They always have a presence, numbering in the thousands to be able to know what's happening as life gets more complicated, society gets more complicated, and they have to monitor everywhere in the world what's going on to know what humanity is going to need for its next stage. And with us being at a point now where civilization is on the verge of collapse, the last generation of humanity has been born unless there is a mass consciousness awakening. Because in the last 50 years, humanity has extinguished 70% of all life on the planet. You run the numbers, you know that the last generation to have been born will not die of old age. There will be no ecosystem to support them. Humanity's done. And that's why, that's just one of the problems that needs to be addressed for the future. But humanity has to awaken. And now it's time that there's the realization that humanity has been so suppressed in their knowledge and their relationship with reality and source and the universe that humanity cannot pull itself out of it. They need assistance. There has to be a collaborative relationship with humans awakening to what is more, to what is greater, and letting go of their prehistoric concepts of reality.
Right. And I wanted to tie that in with what Drew was saying about source and how we need to be more in contact with the frequencies of ourself to rise up, like Gigi says, to lift people up, to lift ourselves up, and then lift the rest of the world up. So I agree with Gigi as well. Let's go around the panel and take last comments, starting with Will.
No, it was I'm just enjoying listening. So sorry if I'm just sitting here looking like a bump on a log, but I'm listening a lot, and so it's you give me a lot to think about and to go forward into looking for, kind of pointing directions and stuff. So thank you. So that's pretty much all I have to say, Tim. So thanks a lot, Drew. Appreciate it.
Okay, and Nos?
Question for you, Drew, on the things that you've learned and how it's changed your life, the perspective of your sphere of influence that you send out from there. What do you think is going to be kind of the butterfly event that you want to kick off to help humanity into the next thing it needs to accomplish? Right? Like, what do you see being the stages of things that you want to have a direct hand in that takes things to the next level?
Great question. Yeah. So first off, one of the most profound things was asked before. This is when I was first starting having the ET contacts and ships like that, and I I asked ayahuasca in a ceremony. I was like, "When is disclosure coming?" And she said, "Whenever everyone looks in the mirror and realizes who they are." So I guess, my goal is to waken everyone up that to the fact that they are not a 3D body, they're not going to um they're going to be way more than soil. Their bodies are going to become soil, but our energy of our consciousness, and this is one thing that I realized in my near death experience in 2019, that we don't ever die. And the big kicker, when when our hearts does stop and we do stop breathing, it's you almost laugh at how crazy it is of what we're taught. I come out of my near death and I laugh for like 5 minutes straight, and it was a crying laugh of just like so deep and so joyous and so in amazement of how backwards we have it. And I just hope, my legacy, that Drew's legacy and of his avatar, is helping wake humanity up to what is really going on, to the true awakening and the true disclosure. It's internal. The portal outward is inside. It's not in it. There might be portals on this earth, that stargates or whatever, that are man-made, but the true one is internal. And that's my overall message, and to connect to that. And if we can all do that and realize that we're all source, we're all gods walking on two legs, and we have to come to the balance that each of us sees fit in between the truth that we're a physical being on two legs, but we're also have God capabilities. And each and every one of us has that, bar none. It doesn't matter, physical deformities, dementia, people that are locked away. They all have the same energy. They all come from the same energy source, and they're all part of the same energy source, and they're all just as sacred, to include everything in creation. Because everything in creation, even this lighter, was in someone's mind at one time, and now it's manifested out in physical form. Therefore, it's sacred. And that's true for everything in existence.
Drew, tell everybody where we can find you.
You can't.
Can't
Sacred. Sacred Journeys Within.com. Journeys is spelled with an IES. The social medias, I'm hoping to pull up, YouTube and all those in the morning, and see a bunch of new followers on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, it was just on a reality show too. Was on Homestead Rescue, which aired in November 19th of 2023. Homestead Rescue season 11, episode 1 on Discovery Channel. You can actually see what our homestead looks like, and all that, and see a cool process that we went through there. But yeah, just Drew Banky.
Didn't you say the room you're sitting in right now was built on that show?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, this room right here was so this is on top of our horse barn. So the horse stalls are underneath me, and the donkeys that we got on the show are underneath me, goats and everything. So yeah, this is my office cabin, and this is a bed over there that guests stay when they come out and stay and do ceremony with us, and this is my office and studio right here. So
Very cool.
Very cool.
He used to have a podcast. I don't know if it's still going to operate, but it was called Eagle's Nest Podcast.
I got Eagle's Nest podcast on YouTube. It's under my YouTube account now. That's just Drew Banky. I just dissolved all that stuff, and because it was just a lot easier for people to find me. There's just too much stuff going on. But you can look at Drew BANKEY YouTube channel now, and all those episodes that was on. I had Billy Carson on, Kevin Day, Ruben Langdon that heads up interviews with extra dimensionals on Gaia. Yeah, just all types of amazing guests. Laura Eisenhower, I had on there a few times, and yeah, go check out those. And yeah, I've done a lot of interviews on different shows, Fade to Black, Coast to Coast, all the way up and down, and plan to don't stop, man. My goal is to get this message out to as many people as possible. So like, share, subscribe, and definitely like, share, subscribe this channel for sure. This channel here.
I have to put up one more picture that he asked me originally to not include, but I'm going to include it because it's it's a very nice picture, and it shows his wife Ella. So here we go. This is Drew and Ella.
Yeah, that's when I had long hair, and yeah, that was years ago on Mount Shasta.
So it shows the true nature of Drew's mission in that picture. So
his
thank
wife
you, Drew.
They were fighting to see
Right.
who could throw each other into the water first.
Somebody had asked earlier in the chat room, how did you go from soldier to shaman? It seems like a really large leap.
Well, if you look at a lot of, if you dig into a lot of spiritual practice, Tibetan spiritual practices, Native American spiritual practices, the warrior tends to transform to the medicine man, and this seems to be a common thread in a lot of places. And what was shown to me by the spirits is to have the energy, enough energy to take lives, not necessarily take lives, but to be in that space to take lives. That same intensity is needed the opposite direction to save lives. And that's what I was shown. That's why when I said that it wasn't me, that's why I was ultimately shown it was me, is because I have a deep inlaying of service to others in me from the military. And I had the intensity in me to take lives, and I've definitely have found to transform that energy 180 degrees and push it the other way. It could really help humanity. And that's what I was originally, that was one of the things I was first originally shown when I was shown what I was supposed to do, what I am, why I'm here. And yeah, I've done that a few times, and I've helped people. I've saved a few lives, and I've definitely helped awaken my share so far. So
Good.
I'm going to continue on doing that, whether it be with plant medicine or speaking or books or however it is, but it's a numbers game for me right now.
We thank you very much for everything that you're doing for humanity, along with what you're doing for yourself and your family. And we thank you very much for your time spent with us tonight. We'd like to bring you back on when Nicole can be here, so that we can actually have the full panel, and Odessa is back as well. I guess she had a really tough day at work, so that's why she's resting now instead of being on the show. But we miss Odessa and we miss Nicole, and hopefully next week we'll have them both back. I want to thank you again, Drew, for being here this evening, as well as you, Gigi. Thanks for coming on and sharing your time. You're always welcome. And Nos, you know how I feel about you. Thank you very much for being here. We are going to be having an interesting guest next week. His name is Dan Willis. He's going to be talking about reverse engineered alien technologies, and especially the metapod beds that are being developed nationwide for distribution to the commercial market for medical procedures and helping treat illness. It's supposedly both a human and non-human intelligence built technology. So we're going to be talking about that. So we'll see you next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And thanks for coming tonight, everybody in the chat room and who watched online. Good night from everybody on the panel.
Good night.
We would like you to join us on Wednesday, March 6th for an interview of Dan Willis at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. He is an author, an experiencer, a whistleblower, and a ufologist. We will be focusing on his extensive knowledge concerning reverse-engineered alien technologies, and especially the Medipod beds and their benefit to humanity. We at the UFO MAN team hope you will be there. Thanks for watching, and good night.